And we're live.
Hey.
Hey. What's up, guys?
So we are sitting here. I don't have anything spiked. I'm straight out of the can. I promise there's nothing in there.
And just spicy water.
All right. Well, we are going to head off this Monday Mastermind. It's Monday, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I had my day straight.
We're almost through this day.
I know. It's great. It's great. We're joined here by Brian Salem and Lisa Cole. Kelsey Wozniak is usually here, but she couldn't make it today. So, but we will have her on next time as well. But just a few of our top agents in Northeast Ohio talking about the market and helping other agents and advising them on how to better serve their clients, which I think is awesome. So you guys are awesome. I love it. Love it. Love it. So I just had a few questions because I talk to a lot of agents in the marketplace. I field a lot of questions and I can kind of tell what their concerns are. So any differences in the market? I know that it's been 3 weeks, but what are you guys feeling right now? Is it the same as it was 60 days ago? Is it worse? Like, is it inventory? Is it better? What are you guys feeling like?
It's more of the same, unless, I mean, I know most of our listings are gone, obviously, but it's been like that. So I don't know. I really don't think it's changed much on my end. What about you, Brian?
Yeah, I don't think from like 60 days or even 3 weeks ago, a lot's changed. I mean, I'll say what I've seen. I mean, they lowered the rates again, right? Like last Tuesday to mid-twos. So I still think that there's an increasingly high demand for buyers. If I were to say I've seen anything is as opposed to 30 or 60 days ago, there's not that much new inventory coming at a given time. Right. It depends on the city and the price point, but I actually think there was a lot more, although still low, inventory on 60 days ago as opposed to like in the last couple of weeks. And I think a lot of the clients I'm speaking with in more families, it's still this kind of unknown with schools. And I think right now they already decided maybe they're keeping them home and they were fine. But I think there's a lot of, still anxiousness and okay, depending on what the schools say, we might be ready to sell, or we might just going to wait it out for a couple of months. I think that's got a little bit to do with it, but I think overall it's still a very busy market and inventory is extremely low with buyers that, I mean, a ton of showings on listings, a ton of buyers out there looking.
One thing I'm seeing is, and when I'm talking with sellers, when I'm talking pricing, basing pricing on what is pending versus what is sold, because values are rising so steadily that the ones, like I just went on a listing appointment today and there were 2 condos that were pending that went under contract in 2 days. So that they went, asking or above asking. So we base the price on those pending sales. So that's a little bit different. That's typically not the case, but it's just changing. So it's moving so rapidly and values are increasing so steadily. So,
right. And it's almost like when you're talking to buyers, you tell them like the list price is the starting price today.
Right.
Yeah. So it's been a little crazy. So let's talk about the buy side for a moment. It's that whole unknown, and a lot of people want to go shopping for a home first because they're afraid if they list their home and it goes in 2 days, they're not going to have anywhere to live. And so wondered what you all do, because especially newer agents, they're like, it's the chicken before the egg type of conversation. And I find that they have a lot of trouble mapping that out for their clients. And I didn't know if you all had any advice for that. We'll start with Brian and then we'll go with Lisa. If you've got anything you want to share.
Do have advice. This has been going on for a couple of years. The first thing is you've got to have the conversation and you've got to sort of lead and control and ask the right questions to these people of what are their expectations and what's their tolerance level. So, I mean, we're still meeting them in person. I mean, we do this. I mean, these conversations not only have been weekly, they've been actually going on, I feel, for a couple of years because we've had that low inventory. Nobody, wants to be left without a home. So, I mean, a couple options. Again, it all really depends, and it's a case-by-case situation, but we really try to put our clients more in the driver's seat when it comes to buying. So we talk through them at their current home, just so they have an idea, well, what is it worth? Where's the sort of market at that? What are they going to get out of it? How much money? And then we kind of then really do the main focus of the buy end, just like, do they have down payment and savings? Does it have to come from their current home? Do they have it where they could borrow? But we really try to get them in a situation where we're getting their home prepared while we're out looking. And the main priority is to find a home and get under contract, not contingent on the sale. So then it's a matter of discussion with their lender and, then getting their home on the market once we have identified and got under contract with their new home, and then really look to time it. We've been very successful at that, to time then their sale with the buy, but it not having to, want to do with the other. Right. So sometimes it's equity lines, sometimes it's borrowing the money from the 401k. And a lot of that is just so they could qualify on paper to make an actual, bona fide offer, but we're selling their home and the money's coming from that anyways. And then it's always, well, what, I don't want double payments. We just have to kind of work through that. So it's really just understanding what they're tolerable, with, what they can qualify, and then executing kind of on that. But we definitely try to get them in a situation to buy first. And we're not just showing them the home, or, we got to sit down first and have that, hour and a half conversation and set those expectations and strategies first.
That's great. Right. I love it. Lisa, what do you got?
I like to get the financial piece in place, of course, but I also like to say, okay, once we list your house and we have an offer and they want to close in 45 days, if you're not finding the house that you love, do you have some place to go temporarily? So I always walk them through that. Okay, what are your options? And usually they're going through their mind like, oh, or they've already, sometimes, a lot of cases they've already thought about it. We could go live with my mom, no big deal. Or, what would we do? We have dogs, we don't have family, then I'll help them find a place to rent, possibly that would allow, pets temporarily, because I really want to take the pressure off of the buy. I want to focus on one thing at a time. Let's get your house sold and under contract. Let's get that off your back. And then you can shop non-contingent, Obviously, we'll pound the pavement with them and try to get them, into their new house so that they have a seamless closing. They don't have to move twice. But if for some reason they do have to, I want them to be prepared from the very beginning of how it's going to go.
Yeah. And a lot of times there are clients that are not pre-approved unless they sell their first home. Right. And so that's when you get into those types of situations where we talk about storage unit and staying with a parent or something like that. So it can be done, but unfortunately in this market, when you have, 10, 15 offers on a home, a seller, accepting an offer contingent upon a home that's not listed yet or that's not under contract is very, very difficult. So they've got so many more options,
Mm-hmm. True.
Absolutely. So, all right. And also when representing the seller in multiple offer situations, you've got 10 or 15 offers in front of you. Obviously, you're looking for, typically the highest offer. However, that's not always the case. What else is really important? And what do you advise your sellers on when it comes to evaluating those offers? And we'll start with Lisa and then we'll go with Brian.
I mean, for me, it's the strength of the buyer, the lender. One time I had multiple offers and the lender actually called me. So that put me at ease, it just also, just showed that he was on top of his game and he, just assured me that he pulled credit and all that good stuff. So that was good. Obviously, if one offer is asking for inspections and the other is not, the one that's not asking for inspections is enticing. Sometimes buyers will pay. I haven't seen this much, but sometimes buyers will pay for X amount of dollars, the first, $1,000, $2,000 worth of repairs. So that kind of puts the seller at ease too. I'm looking for an agent who is communicative. I want an agent who is not just emailing me and, doesn't even know if I'm going to find their offer. Are they calling me? Are they having a discussion with me? Are they receptive if I'm asking questions? Because a lot of times I want to know about these buyers. Did you just meet them today? Is this the first offer they're putting in? Are they prepared? Do they know what to expect when it comes to inspections? And if I'm asking that agent questions and they're giving me nothing but attitude back, I'm just like, okay, well, this is an indicator of how this is going to go. So, I mean, you want an agent who's going to be nice to work with the whole way through, and you're in a sense on the same team. So you want to feel that. So that's a big thing I look for too.
Those are good. Awesome. Brian, anything else you want to add to that? When you're evaluating offers with your sellers, you know, do you just look for the highest offer, or what other things are very important to you strategy wise when talking to your sellers and evaluating those offers?
We want all cash, 10 days, no inspections.
10? We could close that in 5 days.
So I think the last point that Lisa made is kind of a sort of unwritten, I think, important component, which is the relationships kind of out there between the other professional co-brokes, you know, as far as agents and, you know, the lenders. That when a seller's asking you for all that advice, I mean, it's not just always about the highest price. It's typically when you have kind of 12, 13 offers, what we're seeing is there's 8 that just throw it out there, don't call you, you try to call them, don't follow up. So then it's like, okay, seller, here's all the offers. Here's, you know, and there's usually a couple that just sort of kind of rise, you know, to the top. So, I mean, you know, certainly the terms, I mean, beyond price, a lot of sellers I work with do like seeing the letters so they can get an understanding, whether it's a letter or in an email or just, I'm talking to the agent about who their clients are, you know, tell that. I mean, you know, my sellers want to know kind of a little bit about them, because I think a little bit of that background, you know, will speak to kind of, again, just how the process will work, their financial ability, to be able to close on it. So I think that, you know, all that's important. I mean, making sure the contracts are clean as far as just actually all together, you know, written right. Again, I think those are some of the small details that, you know, I look for when you know, kind of the seller asks, well, which ones, you know, tell me a little bit about this offer, this agent, you know, this, you know, what, depending on sort of the situation is. So, but certainly, I mean, obviously price and clean terms. And right now, because we are having a lot of our clients buy first, you know, the dates usually are very, very important. So even though if it's not the highest number, but they can get the dates they want, only move once with their kids or with their family, be able to get that money in time. You know, that's the dates have become very important recently that we look for. But to me, the communication with the other agent is extremely important right now.
It is. And I think agents sell themselves short and they think, oh, it's just about price and terms. No, I mean, it's about you too, and your professionalism and the way that you handle yourself in the transaction. Right. And do you not even send over an agency disclosure statement? Or are you just sending, you know, the contract and none of the addenda? And it's just, all of it it's a package deal. And I lost my train of thought. I was going to say something about when an agent, like you were alluding to, when an agent calls and asks ahead of time, timeline, what is the seller's ideal timeline? Does the seller have a title company preference so that they take the time to write it up the right way the first time? You don't have to make any changes. That's a beautiful thing too, you know? So I mean, agents have a lot to do. And then relationships. I mean, your relationships are huge. So,
and I think too, it's important when, you have those 15 offers and there's 14 people that don't get the property. If you're on the buyer's agent side of that, how you're responding to the listing agent helps you next time, or it can hurt you next time. So just keep that in mind too, because I think a lot of people get really upset and did you really present my offer and things like that. And then you just never know the next time you need to go to bat for your buyer. So just be really careful and stay professional and realize that as a listing agent, you know, we're doing everything we can to make this fair. You know, unfortunately, there are going to be 14 people that don't get the property. And that's really tough for the sellers and it's really tough for the listing agents. So,
and it's no fun to have 14 offers.
Oh,
this is actually not enjoyable.
Right.
Sifting through all of them.
All right. So we got a couple minutes left. We're going to try to shoot for 20 minutes here, but, speaking of the seller side, once you're in contract, there's a lot of things that come up, you know, home inspection and things. But what I'm hearing is just a lot of times when you've got a house, you know, say it's listed at, you know, 225 and it goes for 250, 260, there's always that appraisal concern, right? And I've been hearing about some appraisal shortages, and sometimes agents can provide comps and move them up. Sometimes there's tactics and strategies that you both use that help you probably with that appraisal process, and didn't know if maybe you could share some of those. So we'll go Brian and then we'll go Lisa.
So it all goes back to, in a lot of what we do is the communication. I mean, just take the time and do your work and do your job. So when it comes to the appraisal part, again, it's just like with the sellers. First off, you're giving them proper expectations when you do have these offers. Hey, this one is so much higher than all the others, so that this may come into play. These are some different things that could come up. So that way your sellers understand in making a decision on what offer to take, that might be a risk. So, sometimes we will use like a kind of an appraisal gap addendum, depending on the buyer, and if they understand that, and their agent, and, if the seller's really going to consider that, sometimes,
Say more about that appraisal gap addendum.
So there's there's several examples I could give you, but there, one that's real recent where, I think 14 or 15 offers, and one of them was 2 or 3 were extremely higher than all the others and our list price. It's a tough, it was in Bay, and it was a little tough to kind of understand that, Bay Village market, there's $1 million homes on the lake, and then there's 150, all within a 2-mile radius. But, when you're kind of looking at a price per square foot, or from the appraiser standpoint, we thought this one might be a little tough with the price. So I just had the conversation with the agent. Look, seller said I could disclose that, how many offers we had. They're willing to work with yours, but we want some protection that if this doesn't appraise, that your buyers will commit in writing up front to pay that difference. And that can be done. So, if it was listed for $350 and the offer's for $400, and it only appraises for $380, right? Well, who's coming up with that $20,000 difference? And to just nip that in the butt up front on both ends was the conversation. So, hey, if it appraised for $380, would your buyer at least be willing to cover an additional $10,000? And if the seller had, so instead of waiting till after the fact, kind of looking to do that up front. So it's just some, language in an addendum that just specifies up front kind of a level or dollar amount that the buyer will commit to up front in paying the difference. And of course, you got to make sure the lender not only understands, but they have the, can restructure the loan. Because a lot of these just don't even get, if a home doesn't appraise, there are a lot of options.
Right.
Sometimes they're just restructuring the loan, and a lot of agents and lenders don't really quite understand it. And it's not that difficult to navigate if the buyer really knows, just because it's more of an emotional thing. They think they're overpaying for the home, but it could be a matter of getting it or not getting it, but their loan amount's still the same. The money they're bringing is just going towards the principal. It's just restructuring it. Now, of course, if it's a minimum down, no money, seller credit, you probably aren't taking that kind of offer anyways. But, if the money's that tight, then I get then there's not that room for it. But it's just to kind of have that conversation and language up front to just nip that, and hey, they're committed to pay X dollar difference.
And it just kind of insulates that for your seller, and it really shows that the buyer's
serious, and a little peace of mind with the seller that that they are protected, that hey, they committed now, and so that way it won't blow up a couple weeks from now. So that's one thing. And then the communication with the appraiser, the appraiser's got to call you as a listing agent to get in the home. Call him back or her back, talk to them about the situation of how many offers and why it did go over so much. Every appraiser we've talked to is open and comfortable to understand, because they got to note some of that. And then depending on the home, we'll give them a list or her a list, or we'll meet them at the home if need be, just so again they can kind of put some human connection to all this about sort of the situation of all the parties involved and what's going on with the home and how we got there. So that's another, just again, I wouldn't even really call it a strategy. To me, it's just kind of doing your job. It's part of the process.
It's representing your
You know what it is? It's a mindset. It's the never say die mindset. You don't ever say
not over till it's over. You're selling in the process.
Yeah. A lot of agents assume and just everyone else will do it their thing and just sort of sit back. And that is not in any market, but especially this market, that just will not work.
Right.
So those are a couple things.
Well, that was a pretty thorough answer. Lisa, do you have anything to add to that?
So I had something, it's just more like a niche thing with the rehab loans, but I learned a lot. I was representing the buyer and the seller for this house in Cleveland Heights that we just closed on Friday. But the property, so when you get a rehab loan, it has to appraise at its current value and then at its after repair value. And then the buyer is lent on the after repair value. And one thing, the buyer is an investor, and so he needed it to appraise for a certain amount for the after repair value. Otherwise, he couldn't do the deal. I did not know that because I've done rehab loans for buyers who are living in homes, but never for a rehab lender. So he was looking for a certain value. We did not write that in the contract, but luckily we got the appraisal to come in where we needed it. So basically what happened was, I'm sorry if I'm coming at this from a different angle. Is this making sense? Okay. Okay. So basically the appraisal came in $140,000 lower than where he needed it to be. And I got to talk to the appraiser who did the review and realized that she did not have all of the information she needed to basically be informed on what the buyer was going to do to increase the level of the home to that level. So we got her all of the information she needed, and we got her comps that she didn't even realize was there, and she did increase the value by $140,000. So I think you're leaving it on a rehab loan, you're leaving it to the bank to get the appraiser the information needed for the repairs and for the upgrades. But now I know not to leave that in the bank's hands and make sure that the appraiser gets a full detailed list, because there was no wonder why it came in $140,000 lower. So a huge learning lesson for rehab loans, if anybody is going to do them anytime soon.
Nice. Well, that's awesome. So yeah, I just have one thing to add when it comes to the appraisals. So my husband, Ryan, does 99% of all of our listings, and he takes care of the listing side. And I focus more on the buy side and helping the agents in our marketplace with that. But what he does is he doesn't actually provide comps, but he will, when they call to schedule the appraisal, he's like, I'll come and let you in. He doesn't give them the lockbox code. And he meets the appraiser at the property. And he's like, hey, I'm not going to tell you how to do your job. I didn't bring comps or anything. But what I want to do is meet you and tell you about the 12 offers we got on this property, and tell you why this is so, why the price is elevated, and what the activity was that we had 63 showings in 2 days and that kind of thing. And every appraisal that he's gone on in the past, probably the past 4 or 5 months, he's done this. Every single one is appraised out. The one we were out of town, and it didn't appraise out. So, I mean, there's so we feel like there's some truth to that. And he's like, okay, I'm going each time.
Don't leave next time.
People do, people are human, and they want to do business with human people. And I think it makes a huge difference. What did you say, Brian?
I said, don't leave next time.
I know.
Not trying to tell you how to do your job.
Right. So yeah, but it's just a little added thing. And again, it's just something that we do, is just part of the process. That's what we do. And so I think it's just raising your standard of what is the way that you do business. I mean, I do know a lot of agents just think, oh, it's the bank's job to call the appraiser. It's the appraiser's job to go in. It's the appraiser's job to find the value, which all of that is true, but we are still a very integral part of that whole process. And I think that we
don't underestimate your role in don't just let other people do. I mean, let other people do their jobs, but you can help them.
You can help them in a nice way without being annoying, right?
Right.
I love it. So anything else that you guys want to close with as we wrap up?
For sale by owners. So if you're prospecting people who are selling by owners, one of my fun things that I've been doing is listing those and being able to raise the price and get them under contract. So selling them for more than what they're listed for by owner, thereby not only covering my commission, but putting more money in their pocket. because a lot of times they're not as educated on the comps. I mean, they do a pretty good job most of the time, but sometimes not. And sometimes you could sell for more. So you can save them all of the hassles and make them more money too. So it's just something to look at.
Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of sellers think, well, it's such a hot market, I can do this by myself. And what they don't realize is that because it's such a hot market and it's because of the low inventory for so long, that the real pre-approved buyers that are serious are already working with agents, and they're going to come in with an agent. So I think that's just a huge, huge thing to realize up front. But anything else in closing, Brian, before I close it out?
I would say I know we have probably different segments of viewers on this. So, I mean, if you're another agent, please just do your job, raise your standards, and raise your professionalism, and do what you're supposed to do. I think if you're a buyer and seller in this market, I mean, you've got to make sure you have the right agent that is on your side on both ends, because listing a home in this market, it's just not about putting a sign up, and too many agents do that, and too many sellers have these bad experiences. So I mean, just make sure you're interviewing, talking to the multiple agents to see who's the right fit. And the buying world right now, I mean, it could be frustrating. So stay patient. Get the right agent who's going to fight for you and who, has the experience in this market to get the job done, is what I would say, to try to hit all segments.
And I think too, right along those lines, Brian, is like, this video is probably educating a lot of our own agents, but I think for the public to know that just because a brokerage has a name doesn't mean all their agents are trained the same and have the same experience. I mean, it doesn't matter what brokerage it's at. You're going to have agents that are just starting out, and you're going to have real experienced agents like the both of you. And so it really is about the agent and not the brand. And so I think, just taking that into consideration when evaluating an agent. So that's great. Yeah. All right. So we're going to wrap up. We're going to do this 2 Mondays a month. It's not going to be exactly every other Monday, but we're going to keep this mastermind going. Kelsey Wozniak will be on with us next time until we can be in our in-person event, which is going to be in Broadview Heights eventually. When some of these COVID things are lifted. So you guys get us twice a month on Mondays at 2:00. Thanks, guys, for joining today. You guys are awesome.
Have a good Monday.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.